So, I mean, I would say that a very important thing, like on carry and anti-mage in particular, is that uh, why are you fighting right now?
Yeah.
Like the reason that your hero exists is because if your team runs around as 4 and makes space, you will farm so quickly that when you hit like 25-30 minutes, you'll have so many items the enemy team literally cannot deal with you, and you can 1v5. Like, you should not be showing up to fights unless they're like under your tower or very, very good. And like if they're in your path for farming already, like you should be playing the bottom side of the map, totally away from your team, free farming, pushing waves. And the way that you'd be winning these fights, you're still actually contributing to the fights, because with anti-mage, you push creep waves so quickly that the enemy team would have to go deal with your creep with the creep waves that you're pushing, and you wouldn't run the risk of like you dying. Like in this scenario, like, your team is obviously destroying, so this helps a lot. Like, but if they weren't destroying and you were doing these same actions, you'd be losing the game right now for this.
Yeah.
Like, as an anti-mage, even as like a PA, like as a Terrorblade, you should absolutely not be showing up to the fights. If you want to do this, you should be playing mid or off lane, because
Or
your
four
job,
roll.
or 4 roll, your job is to take the space that is being made for you on the map. Otherwise, you're making space, but who the fuck are you making space for? Like the whole game of Dota is about give and take of space. So like if you're playing a space taking hero, I know you feel like like you impulsively need to go to fights and help your team, um, but like the whole point is they're doing that shit. Wow, you're gonna win the game, but they're doing that shit essentially so that you can get over farmed, and then like this is, you can see that your team is owning and you are not contributing to these fights at all. Like
Yeah.
you're just walking into the fights and dying because you're not understanding that the point of your hero is to take the space that they're making by doing these fights. Like,
Right.
their actions are actually fine. They're killing people without you.
Like you could be over here. This is the best place for you to be, because
Yes.
they're owning here. You could be over here hitting this tower. I mean, you kind of went for this one, but then you actually just went into the fight. But if you're over here hitting this tower, then the other team has to decide, do we defend this one or do we defend this one? It's literally as far away as they could possibly be from each other. And usually what happens is somebody will make the call, let's defend bottom. Somebody else will make the call, let's defend top. And suddenly then your team is taking like a 4-on-2 fight because 2 people are coming over to deal with an anti-mage who's literally just going to blink away as soon as they show up.
Yeah, you win the game right here if that occurs. Like, if you're split pushing bot, your team is 3v4 top and they're winning. You literally win the game if you separate the enemy team. That's the thing. Carry has changed in the past few years. It is no longer just about farming. It's also about contributing in the farm that you're doing. Like, you can contribute by split pushing and by forcing the enemy team to split, and you're still fighting without having to actually show up to fights on a fucking terrible fighting hero. And that's the thing. Anti-mage is eventually amazing at fighting, but at this point, even with the farm that you have, you can see in the past 2 minutes we've seen you die twice showing up to these fights. It's not because you're bad, it's because anti-mage just can't fight at this point. But you can still contribute to those fights by split pushing. So I think this game is actually, I mean, obviously when you submit the replay, you probably think this as well, but I think this game is actually entirely on you. You could have won the game at this moment right here if you're split pushing down there. Remember, the purpose of pushing in the lanes and creep farm is not to get the farm. It's to force the enemy team to the location, which has already been done. So when you are farming there, that is farm that you could be getting the exact amount in the jungle, except safer, and then the enemy team would be forced mid and they wouldn't kill you. So you had already forced them mid, which accomplished the goal of pushing in creeps. And that's just the way that you need to think about creeps, is once the laning stage has ended, you want to push in creeps as a way of getting the enemy team to be distracted by forcing them to that location, because there's creeps in front of their tower they have to deal with it or the tower dies. And if you don't see anybody on the map, in general, you go farm jungle. You push in a lane, you farm jungle. If you see people, then you can go up to the lane and start farming it, but only if you see everybody. And the better you are at that, the significantly higher rated you'll get. Like, if you watch Arteezy play, the fucking moment somebody goes missing off of the map, he will go jungle. And you can pinpoint each time this happens. If there is one hero that can kill him off the map, he will go jungle immediately at that moment. And I know when you watch like pro replays, it looks like they're just kind of moving at random and they happen to evade something at the last possible second. That is on purpose. That is an intentional act that occurs. Like the moment somebody goes missing, they are calculating how much time it would take them to get to a location, and then they leave. So in that situation, like you didn't see anybody for a long time, even if they're not there and you make the calculation where they could be there and you leave, you're still going to get equal amounts of jungle farm. And if you're wrong about that, who cares? Because the amount of times that you're right will pay for it. You know, that's the thing. Is a lot of that. That's what I always thought when I was getting taught that when I was playing competitive. It's like, you know, I want to take these risky plays. I want to take the risky farm because fuck it, I'm a risky player. But it's kind of just like you'll get the same thing by being not risky. And then in the situations where you can calculate, you'll still be able to like push towers and stuff. You know what I mean? Like only good comes from it. Essentially, is what I'm saying.
Right. I know that I do this a lot, but I really want to make a poker analogy, which is that, like,
oh God, here we go.
If you are just randomly betting in poker, like you're not looking at your hand, that's kind of
this is a good analogy.
It's kind of what Jenkins is talking about, because if you are not moving and not responding to people disappearing off the map, you're basically just betting at random. You're betting that they will randomly decide not to come kill you.
So basically, the point of split pushing is not to do damage to towers. It's not to get the farm in the lane. It is to force the enemy team to show themselves and to deal with you. When you push that wave into their tower, they were already dealing with you. And you had already done your job. You had fulfilled your purpose. In fact, if you had just gone back and jungled, the amount of time that it takes these heroes, including 2 cores, by the way, Necro and OD, to run down to this location, your team will outfarm them. You can very easily win games on Nature's Prophet, and this is how, if you watch really good Nature's Prophets play, they will push lanes until the enemy team has to deal with them, go jungle, push lanes, go jungle, push lanes, go jungle, and they will never die, and because of that, they will farm jungle in areas that they couldn't otherwise farm because the enemy team is busy dealing with those creeps that they were pushing in. So essentially, when it comes to split pushing, I would say that do not focus on these last hits. Just send treants down the lane. Well, this is fine actually, because you see the enemy heroes on the map.
Right.
But the moment they go missing,
right,
this is when you turn around, right here. This is when you go away and you have done your job. Because they're respawning, you see that they've gone missing, and when you see these good Nature's Prophets using meteor hammers on tower, it's not because they are trying to do it in every possible time that they can, and they're trying to split push, and it's about the tower damage. It's the enemy team is allowing me to do this by showing elsewhere. Like, I guarantee you, go watch Bulldog play this hero, and you'll see that if you look at his player perspective, when he's hitting towers, it's because the heroes that can kill him are in vision. And the moment that they're not in vision, his hero will move away. The moment they're in vision, he'll move back. And you can kind of trace it and see that he is essentially playing aggressively like you're doing here while they're in vision, and playing defensively and just pushing the wave when they're not in vision. And if you do that, you will be 10x the Nature's Prophet that you are now, because this is basically the sole reason that the hero is good in the mid game, is that you can safely push every lane with TP and treants, and then if they do leave and show like they're showing here with these 3 heroes, you can see literally all of them, then you can damage the towers. Like, that's the reason that he's good, but you have to leave when they're not in vision. And I just realized that's a pun because he's like a tree hero and I keep saying leave, but you have to leave when they're not in vision and play aggressively when they are in vision. If you do that, you're a way better Nature's Prophet. That's literally all you need to change, and so much will occur from that. Like, your team fights will get better, like I mentioned in the intro. The enemy team will have less farm, so your Morphling will have a better game because they're so busy dealing with you that Morphling will just have, so he won't even know why. He'll just be like, well, this is an easy game. It's because of you. It's because you're causing the enemy team to come to your location always, and Morph is just going to find that he has an easy game. Doesn't matter who that player is. If you are on their team, he will have a good game. Like, so many things will come from this that I don't even want to continue into this replay, because this is enough to win you hundreds of MMR. If you can start playing like a big bitch when they're not showing, and playing like a giant man with huge pecs like Donnie when they are showing. That's when you want to play like a big pecked man.
Yeah, and the only thing that I wanted to add to this is, to do this correctly, you need to have a internal clock in your head, basically. So you can see, like right here, So we've been showing for a while because we're just hitting this tower. Nobody's responding. You can see people over here. You can see people over here. Purple is now off the map, so you should take note of that. You're still showing in lane, so they've had vision of you for a long time. This is probably too long for them to have vision of you, but because there's fights going on, it's okay. Now they're all off the map, and since they're all off the map and you've been showing for a good 30 or 40 seconds in this lane taking tier 2 tower, you're still pushing this wave, you should know with 100% certainty that they are coming for you now. So like you said, at this point you should back up like Jenkins was talking about, but you should just kind of have this clock. Okay, I'm showing in lane, like even like you were saying, pushing these creeps is like almost too slow. Because you're just standing here right-clicking these creeps. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Here's how I explained it to my brother-in-law recently, is that if you put your treants on those creeps, 50-50, you get the last hit, right? Maybe you can micro them and get the last hit, but if you just send the treants down the lane, you might get the last hit. But guess what? If you're jungling and your treants are hitting that creep, then you're going to get the jungle last hits, and then you might get that last hit. So you're actually going to get more farm by sending your treants down the lane and going to jungle. Then, like, but the problem is, like, because of the laning phase and how important CSing is, people seem to think that CSing is still really important. Outside of the laning phase, but it's not. The farm doesn't matter. You'll get just as much farm in the enemy jungle, farming ancients, picking up bounty runes, getting kills. The creeps after the laning stage are about vision. They're about forcing the enemy team to deal with you. If you force the enemy team into vision, then that gives you options to make rotations around the map because, hey, this guy's here because I forced him to show. Now we can go Roche. This guy's here. Let's go on him because he's showing because I forced him to show. But guess what you're doing if you're just hitting the wave and you're showing? You're giving them that opportunity that you're trying to make for your team by just hitting the creeps with your hero. That's why Nature's Prophet's amazing, is you can so safely do all of these things, and you just want to do that and go jungle, and you'll get the same amount of farm, but be so much more of a pain in the ass to the enemy team. It doesn't matter as much if Nature's Prophet is showing, because he can just like TP around, and it's more about the person. Any person who is showing on the map is an opportunity to get killed. Like that's and okay. So this is something that like when I do coaching sessions, I always talk about this, and I just remember this. But this is a thing. Like what you're saying with the internal clock. If you're playing Immortal, 1 to 2 seconds of showing, you're dead. If you're playing in Divine, 4 to 5 seconds of showing, you're dead. If you're playing in Ancient, 6 to 7 seconds of showing, you're dead. It works like that, where better players, if you're Dota, you show at all, you're dead because they're already there, because they preempted your movements. So like the better people are, the quicker they will be at responding to your movements, to your showing. And the thing is, like, that's why pushing the creeps is so good. This Necrophos is being forced to show. What happens if there's an Invoker waiting here for him and he kills the Necrophos? You can actually, instead of putting yourself in situations where you can get ganked by split pushing, you can actually set up for ganks while split pushing, because you're forcing people to show. You can take Roche on if you're split pushing. Like, it's all about the tertiary stuff that you get from the split pushing and killing of those creeps, rather than the killing of those creeps themselves.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching the video. We genuinely appreciate your time and attention spent with us here on the YouTube channel.